Hi everyone. So, welcome to the class. Till now we have covered most of the units, right, where we had discussed about the formulation of the strategies, right. We talked about concepts like the nature of business markets, and the industrial buying behavior, things like what is a balanced scorecard and all. And then we also discussed about the 4 P's of marketing, especially in case of the B2B market. Then we talked about things like customer relationship management, how marketing research helps in the entire decision making process, then demand forecasting in the B2B. So, all these things, even segmentation in the how do you segment the B2B buyer. So, all these things we had done. Then we talked about several other things which are important from a B2B perspective, right. So, after doing all this we will be looking more today into the execution side of for any company. How does it execute its strategy, right? You formulated the strategy, but how would you execute it? So, to do this we will be talking about the portfolio analysis or resource allocation, basically what we talk about. And here we will be discussing about some matrices, for example, or some theories which have been built by companies like the BCG framework, the G9 cell matrix, the 7S McKinsey framework and all. So, we are going to discuss about these things today, right. So, let us begin the class and let us understand first what is a strategic business unit. So, the word strategy is connected with this. So, we have to understand what is a SBU or a strategic business unit. Now, many companies, right, they have different businesses, right. For example, if you talk about Unilever, they have several different businesses, you can say, for example, beverage, cleaning, detergents. So, you can say cosmetics. So, different business heads are there from where they generate their profitability. Similarly, the same happens with L&T, like companies which are into engineering, which are into software development. So, there are several heads on which the business is divided. Now, each of these units are called the business units, strategic business units, because they are strategically separated from the main company, so that they are given a unique identity. Okay. So, what is this SBU? So, as it says, the purpose of identifying the company's strategic business unit is to develop separate strategies and assign funding to that. So, that means when a company becomes large, right, it becomes big in shape and size. So, each unit which is giving them a certain kind of revenue or profit, that can be separated, so that exclusive strategy can be built for it, right. As I said, for L&T, let us say the cement business was one business earlier. Now, they had engineering division, the software division, the finance division. Now, each division can either be under this is all under the L&T, but the point is they have been separated on separate heads, because then each unit can be assigned a target, can be assigned a specific HR a group of people, so that these people can focus on their core business. Okay. So, how do you define SBUs? It is a single business or a collection of related businesses, and as a strategy that is separate from the rest of the company. So, for example, the whole overall strategy of the company can be one, but let us say in this case L&T finance or L&T software or L&T engineering division, they may have their own individual targets and goals and vision mission statements. Okay. So, basically what we are trying to say is, when it is like you can understand like a family lineage, where a father has 2 kids or 3 kids, and each kid grows up to become an adult. So, each adult becomes behaves like a individual business, right. So, that is the same thing we are trying to understand here. So, each SBU has its own set of competitors also. For example, when you talk about L&T finance, they had their own companies in India, for example, like Murugappa the group, the Manapurna finance, or you can talk about Bajaj finance, who are its competitors. Or if you talk about L&T software, then the soft competition can be with, let us say, HCL, or let us say TCS, Infosys, Cognizant, anybody, right. It has a manager responsible for strategic planning and performance. So, what it means is, each SBU now has got its own individual set of people who will be taking care of the business, right. But a strategic business units, although it operates to as an independent entity, it has to report directly to the headquarters of the organization. So, there is a main parent organization and you have to report them about your business, right. So, it operates independently and is focused on a target market. So, what is your target market, how do you achieve your targets, what is your business you have to set up, all these are defined clearly by the SBUs, and it has a sufficient business to support their own functions such as the training, marketing, finance, accounting, all departments. Okay. This concept was first initially brought over to the academia and overall was by General Electrics. So, General Electrics was one of the first companies which implemented SBUs in the 60s, right. So, today this company has approximately 49 separate strategic business units in energy, finance, software, water, healthcare, etc., right. General Electrics which is considered to be one of the world's largest companies, the most innovative company, the most successful company for a long period of time. It had stalwarts like Jack Welch and all who were great leaders of the company. So, this company now when they realized that they are becoming too big and it was very difficult to handle, and they found that every individual business unit can be separated and can be given its own targets and can be given its own freedom so that they can work freely. So, they after realizing that they broke it up into separate strategic business units, right, which is 49 as of today. Now, if you can see with an example, TCS can define its SBU on the basis of its services. Now, for example, on basis of its services or the clients you are catering to. For example, cyber security, cloud computing, consulting, sustainability, Internet of IoT, Internet of Things, data and analytics. So, these are the different services on basis of which you can define your SBU, right. So, that depends on the company's policy, company's strength, what kind of a size you have already accrued, each service, how much of business it has generated. So, is it sufficient enough to become a SBU in itself? If no, then it is a separate story. Same thing if you can look at TCS can define its SBU on the basis of the industries itself, for example, healthcare, education, life science, retail, insurance, banking, manufacturing, energy. So, on basis of their service industries it is catering to, and they can define the SBUs. Okay. Now, the question is, when you have defined your SBU, strategic business unit, it becomes important for the companies because it helps them to allocate the resources, right. So, once the company has defined an SBU clearly, then it can easily allocate resources, how much of funding has to be allocated to this particular unit, right. So, managers analyze SBUs and decide as to which SBU should be continued, expanded, phased out, right, and which new business can be pursued. So, based on these decisions, resources are allocated, and two models are very popular which is used for resource allocation. One is the BCG matrix or the growth share matrix, simply called as the BCG matrix, Boston Consultancy Group matrix. Okay. The other is the G multi-factor portfolio matrix, or simply called as G 9 cell matrix, because it has 9 cells. Okay. So, if you look at this one, this is a 2 cross 2 matrix and this is a 3 cross 3 matrix, right. So, these two matrices have been very popular and has been in fact being taught in almost all business schools around the world. Now, let us talk about the first one, the BCG growth share matrix. Now, it is a planning tool that considers two factors that companies should consider when deciding where to invest: company competitiveness and market attractiveness. So, what it says? Growth and share. So, what is the industry growth or the market growth and what is the market share the company is holding. On basis of these 2 points, 2 factors, the funding can be done to the SBUs, right. The BCG matrix is explained into 4 quadrants, right. So, quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. So, these quadrants are defined as question mark, star, cash cow and dog. Now, what is question mark, what is star, cash cow and dog, individually I will explain. Now, if you can see the relative market share this side and market growth rate is this side, right. So, market growth rate, or you can say industry growth, right. So, for example, let us talk one business which is software. Now, what is the growth rate of the software business, right. If you talk about, let us say, pharmaceutical industry or drugs manufacturing industry. Now, what is the growth rate of that industry, right, or a particular line of drugs, for example, cancer drugs, right. Now, similarly, what is the relative market share of the company, right. So, on basis of the market share, now the market growth rate can be low, high, similarly relative market share can be high and low. So, how much of cash it is generating, that helps to decide the even the market share, right. So, this question mark, star, cash cow and dog is defined. Let us understand each one of them very clearly. Now, when I say relative market share, how do I understand it? Now, relative market share is percentage of the market share of the company A's product, or let us say market share of company A's divided by the market share of the largest competing product. Now, very simple, it says relative market share is equal to, let us say you are the company, your company. So, your market share, right, divided by the nearest biggest competitor, his market share, right. So, the closest market closest competitors market share. Okay. Now, closest in the sense in size, we are saying if I am having a market share of 12% and my closest competitor has a market share of 10% and others are all having less than 10%. So, the closest one is 10%. Okay. Sometimes it can be the reverse. From the other's point of view also, you can think that I am having a market share of 12%, my closest market share competitor is having a market share of 13%. It is possible that it is higher than me also. Similarly, market growth rate is equal to total market unit sales, total sales in the current year divided by the total sales in the previous year, or you can do it in this way also, total sales this year minus sales last year divided by total sales, okay, total sales this year, which is this year, right, again this year. So, if you do this, you will also get the market growth rate, right, how much the market is growing. Now, this is a simple example you can see of L'Oreal. Now, L'Oreal is a company which is a very famous company, is into cosmetics like skin care, hair care, hair color, fragrances. Now, in certain individually each of these categories, it has different brand market shares. For example, 9, 3, 9, 4.1, right. Who are the leading rivals in each category? For skin care, Hindustan Unilever, Unilever. Hair care, Unilever again, hair color it is Henkel, and fragrances it is Chanel, right. What is the rivals market share? Now, 7, 8.8, 6, 4.5. Now, so what is the relative market share? Now, relative market share is your market share upon the closest market share, right. So, 7 so 9 upon 7, so 9 divided by 7, so that comes somewhere around 129, right. This is all in percentage. So, similarly, if it is 3, this is 8.8, let us say rivals market share is 8.8. So, 3 divided by 8.8 or let us say 9 almost. So, coming to 34%, right. This is, so all these percentages are given, the growth rate of the companies is given. In fact, in case you do not have any idea about the growth rate of the company, generally the growth rate of the company or industry growth rate is maximum is assumed to be up to 20%, right, maximum. So, that is just a expert opinion you can say, right. Now, how does it look? Market growth rate low, high, and relative market share high, low and high, right. So, if you see here, this one, right, 129 relative market share is 129. So, 129 somewhere here. So, hair color if you see is positioned here, right, fragrances is here positioned here, skin care is positioned here and hair care is positioned here, right. So, by looking at this one can understand which is the best in out of these 4, let us say although there are 5, one is missing. So, which let us say this one and this one. So, which is doing the best? Now, the hair color is doing the best, right. So, the market growth rate is also high, it is growing and the company has a very good position, that means its market share is quite high in the its presence in the market is very high. So, but if you look at the hair care market, the market is not growing much, right, and the the kind of the growth rate is also not very high. So, the growth rate is almost like 3 point something and the market share is also not very high, relative market share. So, should the company continue put more fund into the business or should they try to sell it off, hire it off, what should they do? Now, that depends entirely on the planning of the company employees or the the top notch people in the company. Okay. So, relative market share can ranges between anywhere between it is like 0.1x to 10x actually, and this is where you like the x lies, right. So, this is how it is compared, it is like it is basically logarithmic scale, it is converted into logarithmic scale anyway. So, this is simple to understand. Okay. Now, when you talk about the question mark, so what is a question mark? Let us see here. Now, this one is the question mark, right. So, what is the question mark? Relative market share is low, but market growth rate is high. So, the market growth is high, but my market share is low. Why? Maybe I am new to the business. So, questions are marks at businesses operating with a low market share in a high growth market. So, companies should invest in or discard this business depending on their chances of becoming stars. Now, generally this is not to be done, rather companies should invest, because a company is usually usually in a question mark stage when it is close to its introduction or somewhere, right. So, it is new to the market and it has not found too much of time. So, it is just penetrating into the market. So, at that time your market share might be low, but your growth rate is high of the product category. But yes, if it is for a long time you are there and still you are not growing, then maybe the company can think of discarding. For Google, video conferencing is a question mark, because its product Google Meet has a low market share, but the market for video conferencing is growing rapidly. Okay. What is a star? Star are businesses operating with a high market share in a high growth market. So, both are high. So, the industry is growing and you have a high market share. So, obviously, in this case there is no question of cutting down your funding, rather the company should invest more, put in more funds, right. So, they require high funding to fight the competitors and maintain their growth rate. So, here for example, Google mapping solutions is a star, because its product Google Map platforms has a high market share and the market growth rate of mapping solution for Google is very high, right. So, both in this case they are doing pretty well and the market is growing at a fast pace. So, it is wise to put in more resources. The third case is the cash cow, where the company is having a high market share, but the industry is not growing fast maybe, right. So, if the industry is not growing, it is a low growth market, but the company has a high market share, in such a condition the company should milk the cash cow for as long as it can. So, you can see for here mobile operating system is a cash cow for Google, because its product Android has the highest market share and the market growth rate for mobile operating system has slowed down. So, this business is not growing anymore, but I have a large presence in this market. So, for example, ITC, when you talk about cigarettes, it is ITC. When you talk about let us say for example, let us say soft drink market, you can say it is Coca-Cola or Pepsi, right. So, some industries might not be growing very rapidly because the curiosity, the kind of affiliation for the consumers has slowed down, but what is happening for positive is that it has already created a large market share, right. So, that is the advantage. The last is not a good situation. So, this is a case for dogs, which is called dogs, businesses where the market is not growing, right, and the company has a low market share. That means, neither the market is growing nor I have a high market share. So, in these units typically the company needs to wind up or sell the business and rather think of hiving or coming out of it, right. So, you must have heard, you must have seen like situations like where the company wants to divest, the government wants to divest its stakes in certain companies. Yeah, it could be a strategic issue, that is a separate thing, but sometimes the government is not making too much of profits in the public sectors, right. Few public sectors which are not growing and the government thinks it is better to come out of it. Or similarly, some businesses, for example, the companies found that although they have been into that business for a long time, but somehow the market is not growing anymore and their market share is also slowly decreasing, because maybe one or two players in the market are only holding the highest market share. So, it is better to sell off that business to the others and bring out that revenue and maximize its utility for some other purpose. So, for Google, blogging platform is a dog because its product Blogger has a low market share and the market for blogging platforms is not increasing anymore, right. So, with social media platforms and all, so bloggers are no more of much interest to people. So, take a practical example, select any B2B company, right, of your choice and make a BCG matrix of their products, right. So, by doing this you will understand that how you can you can categorize different product categories or product heads into various headings, right, just by understanding how much of market share I have and how much of profit. This can help managers in a big way that they can easily remove those unrequired or unprofitable non-profitable businesses and they can put in more funds into those businesses which are doing better, right. So, the difference for example would be like if it is in a question mark, sometimes people may think of discarding, but they should have the patience because question mark is a stage which is as is like an early stage, right. But dog is a stage where the company has now maybe spent enough time and the market is not growing. So, these are industries which are which can be looked into and accordingly decisions can be taken, right. So, we will continue this class in the next lecture, right, because now it is time. So, till then take care and thank you very much.